Raise your game and get the new book from Nick DeForest with contributions from over 40 other international educators. International Education Leadership, a Global Playbook, published by SchoolRubric and available on Amazon in both print and Kindle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode today where we're going to be talking about a recent book published by SchoolRubric. And you can check out all of SchoolRubric's publications at schoolrubric.org. But today we're here to talk all about the Global Playbook. And we're here with authors Nick DeForest and Wallace Ting. And I think before we do anything, let's talk first about who is this book really written for? And I'll start right with you, Nick. Maybe you guys talk about who are you really as the target of this book?
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Big scope here. Anyone involved in international school education can get value out of the book. I'm an athletic director. Obviously, that's my focus day to day. But the goal of the book was to, get that out to everybody and show the value of athletics to teachers, principals, directors, especially in this transient environment that international schools are in. Have a playbook that people can go to when people are new and move in. And, but not just international. I think anyone involved in a club, in club sports, or, in a high school in the US or in Canada, they will all find value in the sections of the book. There's really something there for everybody. And I really wrote it to really transcend just certain silos. I wanted to connect everyone.
Yeah, and maybe I can add there too, Ryan. I mean, just to be clear, I'm not an author to the book. Nick's the author. SchoolRubric was the publisher, but I was asked to write the foreword, and I was really honored to be able to do that. And so I think as a former international school director, I think athletics and activities is something that's kind of an afterthought. You just it's there and you don't really focus on that much. You're always focused about IB scores and college acceptances and, your literacy program. And athletics is equally as important. And I think not a lot of people understand that. And I think what Nick has done a really good job at is articulating how are international schools different? How are they unique? And then bringing in a lot of different voices to kind of share their thoughts on international school athletics. And he has a really good, interesting framework, which I hope he'll elaborate on in a little bit.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into a little bit of the framework. And I love the fact with this book is that you have so many different people from so many different countries kind of giving their input on the subject. And, I think I want to talk about kind of that concept of the 6 C's, but I also want to talk a little bit about maybe how you can just kind of dive in a little bit more on that international feel of things, because, you're talking, Wallace, about how with, international schools, maybe the focus is on those IB scores and some of the academics. And I think, how does that differ from US schools where I know, sports are a really big piece of US and Canadian schools. So right. I guess that's kind of a 2-part question for you, Nick, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that international feel of this and then kind of maybe transition to that concept of the 6 C's that you talk about in your novel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the relationship between US based and athletics being a huge part of the school day, the school community is not lost in international schools. It's there, and it needs to be even brought out a bit more. I think there's a bit of stigma of, athletics, we don't need it. Yeah, our kids are not going to go and play college professional sports in international education. That's the thought, anyway. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't play athletics. They shouldn't compete. They shouldn't learn all the values you can learn from athletics, right? It's just as important. It's just in a different way. So maybe, in the United States or in Canada, kids are trying to get college scholarships at football games, especially. There's a huge crowd. They're generating revenue. That's just not the case in international schools. But athletics is still a huge part of school life and kids. And, international schools are a home away from home sometimes for a lot of the kids traveling the globe. It's their connection to other students. It's their connection to the school. And I think, as Wallace mentioned, a lot of the focus from, directors and administrators and board is scores in the classroom. But the kids want to play. The kids want to play sports and connect with their kids on that kind of level, and connect with their teachers as well, on that kind of level. And I think if more focus is put on athletics, then the whole community of a school will improve, and it'll just be a lot more enjoyable for every student, right?
Yeah, Wallace, you kind of touched on this, and before we get into those 6 C's, as somebody that was a former principal and a former director, kind of what is your take on international schools and this idea of athletics kind of being secondary to the education?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think everyone understands to some level that athletics and activities are important, but I think in international schools, my experience has been, I was in Colombia, I was in Guatemala, I was in Nigeria, so I can't speak for other countries, but it was difficult to find games sometimes locally. As an international school, often you're on an island and you're kind of the only international school, or there was only maybe 1 or 2 other international schools in the area. And so it's difficult to find good competition. Also, despite the fact that international schools are often these schools of privilege, sometimes international schools don't have the greatest facilities, right? As opposed to a lot of schools that are public schools in the US that have great tracks, great fields, great facilities. I worked at, a school in Nigeria at the time where we were building a track because our track was a dirt track. Our gymnasium, we didn't have a real gymnasium, and it was called the MPH, and it was kind of a cafeteria / gym. It wasn't air conditioned. And so I think we had to be really resourceful is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes it becomes a challenge, right? Because you're like, well, I can't find a game. Our resources aren't great. Our facilities aren't great. Not that big of a deal. And I think it really takes somebody like Nick, who has gone through all of these situations over, almost 2 decades at AIS Vienna, to kind of say, no, wait a second. It is important. It is a priority. And now he's coming out and sharing what has been successful for him. So I think that's the beauty of this book, which is that international schools are so different. And there's some, in many ways, resource challenged. And because of that, athletics becomes a bit of a down the rung on the priority scale. But then this book does a great job of saying, how can you do with what you have, with all of these different resources and all of these different things?
And I think you're giving your perspective from like the administrative and principal sort of hat. Even we've heard a little bit of the teacher hat. And in my experience of working international, I will say that no matter what, it's still really important to the kids, right? When it comes down to whether you're on a dirt track or you're not having a lot of games, this is really important to the kids, and it's something that they really value, which I think is a good segue, Nick, into talking about kind of these 6 C's of how you developed. And could you just talk about what the 6 C's are and how you developed this concept?
Yeah. So the 6 C's are, as I'm laughing because it was by chance, really, that they came to me, but they're core values, the core things that every school really has or has to do: commitment, of all the stakeholders in your school, care, how much you care about those groups in your school, students, teachers, coaches, the culture that athletics can play and can improve in your school. Competition, as Wallace mentioned, trying to get some competition no matter where you are and what your limitations may be. And then communication. Communication is the shortest chapter. It's the last one, but almost the most important. For all the great things that you do, or if you don't communicate it in the right way, it could be lost to your stakeholders. So those are the 6 C's. And, I didn't want to make a gimmick or a catchphrase or anything when I wrote the book. I wanted to write a book to share and for all the schools to learn about different schools and to improve their school. And as I tried to figure out what needs to be included, what is my school doing great? What is, your school doing great? What can we improve on? I started to see these repeat kind of events, and repeat things. And I thought, wow, I need to group them together. Otherwise, it's just going to be a long list like a manual or a handbook that maybe no one reads or no one really cares about. And they just unfolded into these 6 C's. And actually, I didn't even realize they were all C's. I kind of grouped them together and then thought, oh man, they're all C's. Fantastic. This will be great. So a bit of dumb luck, I would say. But I started with what's important, and then they just kind of fell into these categories.
Well, and I think when you have kind of these, acronyms or these sort of catchphrases, it really helps with an implementation of any program, which kind of leads into my next question is, international schools are unique, as we kind of mentioned before, from US and Canadian schools. So how will this playbook or these C's in the book help international schools move their sports programs forward?
Yeah, I think, no matter if you're a big school or a small school, you have 2,000 kids, 3,000, or maybe the small school that just started with a couple hundred, you can find ways in this book to improve your school community. I'm not saying improve your athletic program, but improve your school community. And like a playbook, if you know athletics, football teams have a huge playbook. They don't run every play, every game, or maybe every season, but they have it in their playbook, and they can go to the playbook when they need something. So that was kind of my vision of setting these sections and setting everything. And not that every school would go read it and implement everything. There's just not enough time. But you can go, hey, if I want to improve a little bit, I can go check it out, pick one thing that's manageable to just improve a little bit every time.
Yeah. And maybe I can add something. I mean, there's, to me, an analogy or something similar is kind of this thing that in international schools happen a lot around child protection and safeguarding, right? You think, well, all of these countries are so different. How can you have a child protection safeguarding manual? Well, it's kind of the same concept where you can have some principles, you can have some ideas, you can have a playbook, so to speak. And then different international schools can say, based on our community, based on our context, based on our board policies, based on the local laws, we can then select from this playbook, from this handbook, different things that are going to work for our community. And I think that's kind of what Nick has done here with regards to athletics and activities. The other thing I would say, Ryan, and you know this too, there's not too much literature around international education. And so we all know that international education is different. And I think what's happened a lot is we've taken stuff from the US and Canada, which is very good material, and tried to just adapt it to international schools. Well, why don't we just write original stuff for international schools and international communities to help them improve themselves? And so that's one of the things that we're really passionate about at SchoolRubric. And so, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that we published a book a couple of months ago called International Leadership Stories from Across the Globe. We got 13 directors and heads of schools to share their leadership lessons. And if you look at Nick's book, hold that up, Nick.
Yeah.
You can see the title. There you go. It's pretty similar. And it's kind of part of this series where we're trying to help people understand international schools more, understand international school leadership more, so that we can understand that they're unique and how to help improve those communities.
And I guess I'd like to just maybe hear a couple little anecdotes from the playbook, because one of the cool things about both books is that sharing of ideas from people from such a wide variety of backgrounds. When you look at the book, you look at all the different countries: Oman, Jordan, Brazil. So maybe Nick, you could just maybe share one or two highlights from the playbook of people that are maybe implementing those C's, just kind of a short anecdote of what people have done in those schools that may be helpful to somebody in a US or Canadian school.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because in every section there's something from somebody in a different place. And a lot of them talk about their specific school, or some talk about a past school that they were at that's better than the school they're at now. And there's a few stories. So I don't know what I would pick out. I mean, there's a lot of great ones. I think one of the very short ones that I really like is about a slogan. And American School of Warsaw The Warrior Way. New athletic director Jason Cuthbert came in, and he instilled this. He wanted to make a statement. You know, what are we going to do? And he started this A Warrior Way. So there's only a few lines from him, and it's in a section about slogans. But he really brought that and lives that every day. And I think a lot of the sections in the book, they're not just things to do and say we did it and check it off, but they're to live it. So I know the students and the teachers and coaches at the American School of Warsaw live this Warrior Way. And I think
it's really that C, right, of creating that culture, that sort of that spirit of the school, the warrior spirit, and something that, you know, the kids and the staff and everybody can kind of grab onto, which I think is, you know, really important for building that sense of community. Let's kind of change things up a little bit and get into a couple other, you know, first of all, where can people find this book? Or can people reach out to you if, you know, they have some questions about the book? Maybe just talk about where they can find the book and how they can reach out to you and maybe learn more about these 6 C's and how they can implement some of these things into their school.
Yeah, I mean, what's more international than Amazon? Amazon.de, Amazon.it, .in, everywhere.com. So yeah, Amazon in print and Kindle is the place to get the book and get your hands on it, like Wallace and I have. But then wherever I am, I'll have them with me. So I was at a conference in Brussels talking about the book. It was fantastic. I'm going to be at a CISA conference, at the NIAAA conference in Nashville in December with Wallace. That'll be great. So anywhere I am, you can get the book from me. You can reach out to me. I think, I don't know, I guess the best is on the SchoolRubric website. There's a page about the books under books. You know,
and don't forget the Globetrotting ADs, right?
Yeah. Of course. Well, it did stem from the Globetrotting ADs and this logo globe that you created, Ryan. You know, with my podcast, I'll be podcasting about the book. I'm going to do some work with ECIS and do some promotion and collaboration with them, as well as with SchoolRubric. I'm going to do some global takes with a lot of the people that contributed to the book. So we're going to do a series of global takes about each chapter. That'll be great. And if someone wants to learn more or be a part of one of those things that I mentioned, be a part of the podcast, use the book at their school district or community or whatever, just reach out. It'll be great to chat with people about the book, what they think about it, what they like, what they don't like.
It's pretty interesting because I think, you know, over the past couple of years, Nick and I have never met in person.
Yeah.
And we're going to meet for the first time in December in Nashville. It's going to be a blast. We'll be at the NIAAA conference, and we're going to try to set something up for athletic directors to kind of hang out after hours, a little bit of an informal book launch party, but really just an opportunity to kind of get to know each other and network and things like that. But it's pretty interesting. Over the past 2 years, Nick and I have known each other. We've collaborated on a ton of things, you know, from highlighting stuff that's going on at AIS Vienna to the Globetrotting ADs and supporting that, to collaborating together on, you know, Global Take. And a lot of it has been about athletics and activities, but a lot of it has just been about international education in general. And I think it's all seemed to kind of coalesce together in this book. All of these learnings, all of these tidbits, deepening the learning. And then hopefully this becomes an even another jumping, you know, not the end of the beginning, just not the beginning of the end, but the beginning of the end, the end of the beginning, so to speak, in terms of being able to collaborate with more schools and getting this message out.
Yeah, well, guys, I find it amazing that you're able to reach so many people and have an impact on these schools, but whether it's remotely. So as they mentioned before, you can get the book on Amazon. You can also find it at schoolrubric.org. I know Nick and Wallace are constantly online. So if you have any questions for them, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of them. Get the book. That's an opportunity for an easy way for you to get the knowledge, or just reach out to them personally. Again, the book is Global Playbook. It's written by Nick DeForest, published by SchoolRubric, forward by Wallace Ting. You can find your copy at Amazon or click on schoolrubric.org and make sure you get the book. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at schoolrubric.org. Thank you.